Welcome to Home's Room. Just like Homeroom, we start off our day getting together with our homies, swapping stories, even a little kiss and tell action. This podcast contains language not suitable for younger listeners, topics about sex and mental health. Discretion is advised. Our views are our own. Let class begin. Welcome back to Home's Room. We've got some guests for you. A professional dominatrix for over 25 years. With their bestie, they host a successful BDSM Lifestyle and Sexuality podcast, breaking stigmas and doing it the fun way, in my opinion. Welcome, Mistress Mia Ray and Master John. How's it going, you two?
Homes are great.
We're here. Yay, me.
So if you could tell us a little bit about yourselves, what interesting things you got for us?
Tell them, John.
Oh, you want me to go?
Go for it.
You're such a bitch. So we started, like you said, we started a podcast a couple years ago. We try to make it accessible to people. We make it light and fun, and make it so that people can open up and talk about what it is that they like, their kinks, their fetishes, and just try to make it so people don't feel so awkward about who they are. It's more about accepting who you are more than really teaching you how to do BDSM, because everybody's BDSM is going to be a lot different. My BDSM is a lot different than hers. We're best friends, but we don't do the same shit. It's not really close.
Which we'll get into.
What did we get into?
Oh.
Well,
I was saying we'll get into that. We how you two differ. I didn't mean to interrupt. What if you want to introduce yourself, Mistress Mia? But we'll get there. We got some questions lined up. So
all right. So I've actually been doing this for over 35 years.
Oh,
I'm getting up there. I'm going to take every year. I'm going to claim every year, honestly, that I can get, because it is not all rainbows and butterflies. It's a lot of shit and mess and crazy people and a lot of kinky fun, but it's not always pretty. Yeah. But I started doing this when I was in college. I needed to make extra money. I started doing phone sex. And when phone sex was becoming stagnant to me, I wanted something a little more fun than just talking on the phone and making sound effects for horny men. I said, I want to do it, for real. And that's what I did. And I started pimping my boyfriend in college and just having fun with it. I was doing a lot of out calls. I would, have my bag of goodies and cross-dress men and do all sorts of degrading humiliation things to them. And, that's what they paid me to do. And it was just so much fun. And eventually I got my own dungeon, and I started throwing big parties. And then I met this guy here at a party. He was naked when I met him in a towel.
It was a good party.
And he brought out his little weed box, and he was rolling a doob. And we're sitting there hanging out. And I was like, "You're going to be my new friend." And next thing you know, we're inseparable. And we have a ton in common. But like John said, we do so many of the opposite things and how we are with BDSM and the lifestyle. But, things just work. When you find your people, you find your people.
Yeah, I like that. And to nip the confusion in the bud, you two are not together, correct?
Not at all. No. He likes hot blondes with big titties, and I like young men.
We both have each of those. So
we do.
There you go. So jumping into my first question, I say this, and my listeners are probably tired of hearing me say this, but every time I do an interview, I have to say it because you don't necessarily know this. But I like to do a little bit of research on my guests and pick out some things that I heard you say that just stick with me. It's like, man, okay, so you, Mistress, were raised Catholic, and you, Master John, were raised Mormon, and
You did do your report.
you had I'm just curious, how did that transition, feel when you first entered this space? Like, was it like, huh, this is definitely where I feel I belonged, or was it, like a weird feeling and had to get into it?
John?
Well, I think those are two different stories.
Two different stories.
So
Perfect.
I was transitioning out of my religious background. I was escaping the cult that is Mormonism.
Yeah.
And I was trying to find my place in the world. I raised my kids. I'd moved from Georgia. I'm in Florida. So I'm trying to find myself, who I am. I've always known that I liked weird things. I was kinky, but I could never find my people. So when I met Mia at the party, it was the right place at the right time. And it was a place for me to be safe and to express to myself who I was and to accept who I was and to be able to explore and do all these things that I'd always wanted to do, but I didn't ever know where to find it. So she gave me that space and showed me where to find all these things I'd been looking for. So for me, it was this, I found my people, I found my place, I found where I belong, because I had been searching for it for so long, and I left one world and was stumbling through a different world, and this has really helped me find my footing. So it was nice.
Good. I like that. That's an interesting transition story, especially from that to this. I'm glad that it I guess almost welcomed you in the way that an open world should welcome a person.
Right. And it from the outside looking in, it was from one extreme to the other.
Yeah.
So I guess I just need to be extreme, and that probably translates well to the type of play I do too, because the things I do are pretty extreme.
Yeah, it's very true. I didn't know John when he was practicing Mormon, but it was kind of like, wait a minute, what? Like,
Yeah.
when you hear the Mormon church, you don't think of somebody like John.
Yeah.
And then you don't see.
We're all pretty cool. We just hide it. We just don't know how to let it out.
You don't see a naked guy at a party who just dipped his dick in paint saying to me that he's a Mormon.
Yeah.
Listen, I like my dick pic. Don't knock my dick pic.
So for me, when I was raised Catholic, my parents were cool parents. We were not, a lot of people, there's different types of Catholics, like there's different types of Baptists, my parents were not rigid. They were not, they just weren't strict. And, they talked to us about sexuality. And of course, my father was much more carefree. He would always just say, think for yourself, be an adult, do the smart thing, be responsible. But my mother, she's like, wait until marriage, be a good girl, save yourself for the right man. And, I saved myself until I was 21, and I thought it was going to be for love. And, it just wasn't, because then you have slutty friends, and the slutty friends are telling you got to get to fucking.
Yeah.
He got laid one time, and it was all over.
It was all over. I was like, yeah.
It's funny how often that's the story. Is it happened once, and it's like, well, why wasn't I doing this before? So yeah.
I knew I wanted to do BDSM at a very young age. Like, I knew about BDSM. Reading it, you read through different things when you're a kid. And when I was, 11, 12 years old, I remember hearing that one song, and it's like, oh, BDSM. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. It was beating guys' asses.
Yeah, you know, I always find it funny when stuff like that speaks to somebody at a young age, because in our culture it's so hard to not feel like shame or weird about it. So again, having people on who are like, you know what, I knew this when I was younger, and I just was like, yep, that's the thing for me. And one day I'm gonna get there. I just don't know how yet, because that part is, you know, organic and will happen. So
Exactly.
I also wanted to ask, from what I know about the space, what you do versus like your standard BDSM is almost like a spiritual experience, or like a higher level of self exploration and expression. Um, not not so much just like for the titillating factor of it. Do you agree, or what are your thoughts on that?
I think honestly, like John, he's all about the higher power with it when it comes to spirituality, not necessarily higher power as in Christ.
Right, right.
It's
Not like in God, but
yes,
the energy, I do
energy
play. You know, usually when people talk about BDSM, they talk about power exchange. For me, it's more of an energy exchange between people. I'm going to give you this energy. You're going to reciprocate by giving me an energy, and we're going to be in this moment together. So for me to create that space and that energy is very important to me.
Yeah, he used singing bowls. Everything is very methodical and spiritual, and it's very ritualistic. He should have been a Catholic.
Well, the Boy Scouts did help.
Yeah, the Boy Scouts.
I remember going to scout camp and getting in trouble. they chained the whole troop together and made us all walk around together because we lit an entire tree on fire and almost burnt down the whole forest. So nice. I still play with fire.
Nice.
So fire is something that's been with me my entire life, and that's what I do now. I play with a lot of fire, play with electricity, knives, make people bleed, make myself bleed.
Yeah.
Singing bowls and just creating that environment. Incense is important. The type of music you play is important. All those things that get you into that headspace where you can reach a light. What I try to do is reach a higher level of consciousness is what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
I think that we just had a conversation with the Sex Reimagined girls, and we were talking about that, how a lot of times you can go on a healing journey through sexuality, and people are starting to like understand that as like a true concept. And BDSM definitely seems like it would fall into that category of finding one's limits and learning a lot about who you are when everything is stripped away. And to me, there's like a beautiful grace in that, you know, is worth noting. So would you say labels are a starting place for BDSM? Should you call yourselves participants? I don't know what word I would use there, but for anybody entering, yeah, there you go, practitioner. There you go.
Yeah, labels. It's more to me when you say labels, it's really superficial. But a lot of people have to have some type of guidance to call themselves something specific, so it helps them identify themselves with other people when they're trying to find their people. Like John and I, we're doms. We're really not switches. A lot of people consider themselves switches, where they'll switch up and they can feel submissive. It's different for everybody. Some people, they want to identify as a rope bunny, or daddy's girl, or different things. So they like the labels, I think. Don't you agree?
I think especially in the beginning of their journey, they like the label. Yeah. It helps them to identify to other people. Hey, I'm a rope bunny. So people will come and want to play with rope with them. So it's an easier way for them to say, this is what I like. I do find that a lot of times, especially when you get into a relationship with someone you're trying to explore deeper, that those labels begin to get in the way, because then they're like, well, I can't do this because I'm submissive. Well, that's not true. You can do whatever you want. Yeah. So the labels are good to identify each other, but beyond a certain point, they do start to get in the way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And
I
especially
would say,
because you mentioned it can be a healing process, and we see that all the time. We both see that.
Yeah.
People like certain things because they had certain things happen to them in their lives. And a lot of times when we do BDSM, we bring them to that moment again in their life, and they're able to reframe that experience and reframe that memory, and they're able to work through it in a healthy way. A lot of people will look at us and say that, well, this is unhealthy, this is crazy. But in a lot of ways, it's a very extremely healthy way to deal with certain things in your life, where some people will cut themselves to feel the pain, and they'll use drugs, they'll do all these things. But if we can control the situation, it can be a lot healthier for them to get through that experience.
yeah, I definitely agree with that. I was gonna say, like, for me, I definitely like claim the title of a switch, where it's like I can see both sides of that. However, I often use the verbiage of I'm a switch, but I just like what I like when I like it, so it doesn't matter beyond that. So
There you go.
I
make your
think
own
that,
rules.
like, exactly, and that is one of the things that I want to try and do with this podcast, is give people the realization that there are tons of walks of life, tons of different ways to participate in things and own your own path, because in the end, that's all we got is our own path, and how you choose to spend it. So speaking of people on their own paths, if people wanted to drop into this and start finding ways to do this, what should somebody that's just getting into the kink space, like, what should they know? What things should you like go seek out first before you jump in, both handcuffed / tied up wrists first?
I would say, the biggest thing is community. A lot of people need support and friends, and they need to have some type of feeling of acceptance. So a lot of people, they need to go to functions, they need to meet people, they need to, feel comfortable knowing, locals and people surrounding areas. So you kind of get a feel of, who's who and what's what. And, it's like we have a local dungeon here. Go to the local dungeon, check out scenes, go to different venues and parties, and, just see different groups, because not everybody's the same. Other groups, they'll focus on rope. We've got a huge rope community. John and I really aren't rope enthusiasts. We like chains, we like fire, we like those types of things. And, so they're not necessarily our kind of people, but, they're still kinksters, and there's no judgment. But I always say, I think that's the first step, is really looking at your surrounding areas, your surrounding people, and meeting people, kind of networking and getting an actual feel of what to expect, from that beginning of your journey, because there's a lot of submissive people that are willing, and they're just so hungry to just get in there and jump in there, that they don't really think rational, and they come across the wrong people, and it can be extremely detrimental to their well-being and their overall health. And, it can be a scary place.
And a lot of the established groups that have been around for a while,
yeah,
they're very protective of new people. They have a lot of resources. They have classes that you can go to. They have demos. So you get to explore, and you get to find a mentor, and you get to find people. My suggestion is always, for someone new, when you go to these events, just watch. Just watch for the first few times. For the first month or two, just watch and see what you like, what interests you. Talk to people. Just make friends before you jump in. Because if, like she said, if you get with the wrong person, especially the first time, it can be detrimental, but it can also be dangerous.
Very much so.
So definitely going to your local dungeon sounds like a good thing to do just starting out, as opposed to, just jumping on FetLife and finding the first person that responds to your DMs and says, hey, I'm into that thing too, is what you're saying.
Yeah, because, a lot of people, I was actually having a conversation with someone today about that, in fact, and that, she put on her profile that she was a switch as well. And she was recently divorced. She's, early 30s. And she was approached by many, dominant men. And to me, the way they approached her, they were more predatorial or, aggressors rather than, being an actual dom in this lifestyle. And so they take advantage again of, situations and people.
Right. And if you go to these events and you meet people, make friends, you can vet people. You can see who they are, because a lot of these people that get on, they say, oh, well, I'm going to get on FetLife. I'm going to say I'm a dom, and all these submissive women are going to want to have sex with me. So a lot of these people that are getting on there are predatory. They're not genuine. They're not about the BDSM. They're more about finding vulnerable women.
Yeah.
Vulnerable men. It's both ways.
That's, I think, unfortunately not isolated to one category or the other. And I think that that's one of the things that makes the world so much harder to navigate is, somebody seeking out information. And me and my co-host had a conversation about this on an episode of our show that just aired this week, actually, where it's you could be on a Facebook group that's supposed to be an informational Facebook group about pottery, and you ask a question and 19 people jump down your throat and tell you you're stupid. And then there's the 3 people that might actually have good information. And the more important it is to have a safe space, seems like the harder it is to tell the safe people from, an online standpoint. And I think that is definitely unfortunate. And I mean, you can report profiles or posts or whatever as much as you want, but it's still hard to kind of weed that out. It's one of my pet peeves about the internet just in general. Like I said, I'm here trying to create a safe space where conversations can happen, and you don't have to necessarily agree, but you might walk out with a different perspective than you walked in with. Not saying you changed your mind, but you're like, oh, I'm not as upset about this thing as I was prior, or this thing doesn't scare me as much as it used to scare me, because that sounded a little bit more reasonable. One thing that Mistress, you said that was super reasonable and I loved is unless you're just having sex to procreate and in missionary, you're probably kinky. And I absolutely loved that statement, because it was just yes, 100%. Can you tell us more about that mindset and where that kind of thought process comes from?
Everybody has a kink, and we meet so-called vanilla people, and, I can remember years ago, I was in a class and, I had a peer of mine, saying something about how she is just unhappy with her boyfriend and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, you need a submissive man, submissive men, they're attentive. There's so much more to them sometimes. There's just more depth, I didn't say sometimes they can be needy little bitches, but, she looked at me like, what? Submissive? What? And I'm like, bitch, come on. Everybody's got a kink. I guarantee you've got some sort of kink. She's like, what do you mean? I'm like, come on. You probably like to lick your boyfriend's armpits. You got a kink. So, that's my thing. I think that, again, people, when they think of BDSM, and this is why, again, John and I started this podcast, when they think about BDSM, there's that stigma that, it's whips and chains, because so many people contact me and they're like, I don't want you to hurt me. And I'm like, it's not about that. It's about you being in tune with yourself, finding what it is you like, finding your fetish, finding your kink, and just finding yourself. So that was the direction, I'm sure, when I stated is what I was going with, is that everybody likes something.
Yeah. I think that, like, again, one of my favorite podcasts to listen to, or I guess two of them, because they work out hand in hand, is Shameless Sex and Sex with Emily, because the message is that, like, it's okay to like what you like, and it's okay to find community in that. And the more we start to accept those parts of ourselves, the more we're going to find the people that, like, foster that feeling, as opposed to being stuck in relationships where you're having to hide who you are or what you want and feeling shame about it, not because you inherently feel shame about it, but because you're afraid to talk to your partner about it and you're not receiving what you want. And that doesn't sound like fun at all to me. I don't know.
Yeah, a lot of times people will think you're going to have a community about sex and dance. Like you said, yes, you are, because everybody wants to feel normal. When we feel like we're doing something we're not supposed to be doing, or that makes us feel weird, it makes us feel shame. But if we find a community that says, hey, that's normal, now we get to explore, and now we get to feel okay with who we are. So yeah, having a community, a sex community, is a good thing. Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm gonna jump around for a second because John, I feel like you're really quiet, and I'm gonna get you sparked here, pun intended. So you like to play with electricity and sharp knives, and I'm curious, how do you make that safe? A quick story, another thing that I listened to, the Nick Selena and the Can't Keep My Mouth Shut podcast, she told a story forever ago about how her and her partner at the time, he had like a knife fetish and thought it would be fun, and had a like a old school straight razor, and they were playing with it, and like it was safe, and nobody actually got cut while they were playing with it. And then they went on doing what they were doing, and she was like, why is my toe wet? Like, what is going on? And they had forgot the straight razor was on the bed, and it nicked the corner of her toe, so she lost a good portion of the tip of her toe. And I was just like, what? I didn't even know that, like, that was a thing. So that was like one of those, like, moments where, man, huh? So now I'm just curious, and you're an experienced person, so you're the perfect person to ask this question to. How do you make that safe?
So the first of all, like you said, you make lots of mistakes. You learn from your mistakes. So, you do the best you can. So when I play with knives, a lot of times the knives I play with aren't sharp. They've never been sharpened. But when you put electricity to them, they feel sharp, and they feel like they're cutting your skin. So you can give the feeling and the sensation without the danger. Of course, if you're playing with electricity, that comes with a whole different set of precautions. So I use a violet wand. It's relatively safe as long as you use it correctly. You start using metal and things, it becomes more dangerous. But you want to make sure that you're wearing rubber soles like you learned in school. If you're touching electricity, wear rubber soles so it doesn't shock you. Because I've done it. I've been barefoot on the concrete and zapped somebody and shot myself across the room. It wasn't fun. But you take precautions, and then you make sure that as the dominant or the top or whoever's doing the things to the other person, that you want to be aware of what's happening. You want to take precautions. I always tell my subs, if I'm playing with fire, I'm playing with knives, I'm playing with electricity, I'm always the one that's in more danger. And I'm always aware of what's going on. If I'm playing with fire, I have it in sealed containers, and I seal the container back before I light anything on fire, so this container doesn't accidentally catch on fire. And I've got fire extinguishers, and I've got wet towels, and I've got buckets of water, and I've got all the things I need if in case something goes wrong, I'm prepared. So you prepare ahead of time with something. When you're playing with knives, have some bandages, have a first aid kit. Make sure that everything's clean and sterile. Make sure that when you're playing, you're sober and that you're aware, because the whole point is to give this experience to your submissive partner and take them to a place where they're not aware of what's happening anymore. So you have to be even more diligent about being spatially aware, being cognizant of where the other person is, where you are. And when it's enough, you need to be able to pull back and say, okay, we're done. And like you said, put the knife away, put it in a safe place. Don't just leave things laying around, because things can go bad pretty quickly if you're not paying attention. So the biggest thing is just learn what you're doing and pay attention to what you're doing and take precautions. It's never going to be completely safe.
And I think the inherent danger is part of the thrill for some people. So, I mean, if it were completely safe, it might not have the same,
right. You don't get the adrenaline rush unless you're pushing something.
Yeah. So can you explain a violet wand real quick? Because like in my head, I always just assumed they were like cattle prods, and it sounds like it's a safer device than just a cattle prod.
Well, we do that too. So yeah, it's hard to explain what it looks like, but it's just a piece of plastic that you put glass tubes in. They look almost like light bulbs or neon lights, and they have a small electrical shock. It feels almost like a massage or a tingle. You can turn that up pretty high. Those don't really get very intense. They can, depending on what part of the body you put it on. You put it on a nipple or on a clit, you feel it. But then you move up to silicone tips, and you put that on somebody, and like I said, you're going to shoot them across the room. It's intense.
Yeah.
And what I do normally is I have a special attachment that you plug into it. It has a metal end, and I attach that metal end to myself. So if I touch my partner with my finger, it shocks them. Or if I pick up a knife and touch the knife to my partner, it shocks them. It feels like it's cutting their skin. So it does get very intense depending on what you're doing and how high you turn it up. You can actually brand people with it, so leave permanent marks, burn their skin. Just you have to know what you're doing and be aware what your partner wants and how far they're willing to go. Because a lot of people do want pain, but pain comes in a lot of different ways. So it's a different type of pain.
Tell them about the metal plate and how you use the metal plate.
The metal plate. That's what I put to my skin.
Yeah, when you put it under somebody, though.
Yeah, if I put it under them, then it electrifies them instead of myself.
Yeah.
So it does the same thing. If I touch them, they get shocked, but I don't. If I energize myself, we both get shocked.
Okay. Yeah. That's one of those like, not that this is the same thing, but we heard about like the vampire gloves, and I just thought that was just such an interesting like concept. And it sounds like, for me, like the vampire glove thing, like I don't know what that would feel like, and I don't know that I would enjoy the like, I don't want to say the texture, but like the texture of it, like it's hard to explain because I'm one of those like weird texture people. So like if your hand was electrified, so like when you touch, you still get that sensation without like the texture of something else. It's still a hand. Like that sounds like it would be way more interesting.
Like when you were a kid and you rub your feet on the carpet and touch the doorknob, it would shock you. That's what it feels like. Or you're on a trampoline with socks and you touch your friends to shock them. That's basically what it does.
Yeah, that sounds, like I said, to me, that I can equate that sensation to something that like sounds enjoyable. Where like when I heard about the vampire gloves, I was just like, see, that just makes me think of like Velcro burn, or like I work on cars. It just makes me think of like when you rub your arm across something you didn't expect to be like, and I don't know that sounds fun. So I'm a vote no on those, but
it's definitely not for everyone.
So you said you play with fire as well, and I'm curious, is it like the cool fire that like I wish I could remember it's like a gel that burns, or is it like fire?
Yeah, so you can use hand sanitizer is a gel you can use. You can light that. I use several different accelerants. I eat fire, so you've seen people do fire shows where they eat the fire. I do that. I breathe fire. I spin fire. I will run the torch across my arm or across my partner and leave a little bit of gas, the accelerant behind. Usually it's an alcohol, so it doesn't burn very hot. And leave it behind, and there will be a flame on their skin where I ran that across there. So it really just kind of depends. I do some things for kids sometimes. I'll make bubbles. You you blow bubbles as a kid. Well, if you fill those bubbles full of butane instead of oxygen, and you light them on fire, they burst into flames. So
That's
it's
cool.
just a lot of different things. Sensation play. Nobody ever really gets hurt or burnt. It's just a lot of sensation. If you feel the warmth, and it's the energy. You get the energy from the fire.
Now,
Yeah.
Holmes, he's being very modest, but he's badass when it comes to fire. And at the parties, these women are just like, when's Master John going to do his fire shift? And they'll come up to John. They're like, John, could you set my pussy on fire? And he's like, sure, just get in line. I'll do it. Like, oh my God, he's such a whore.
Yeah, see, so
you breathe fire and you put it in your mouth. Girls want you.
yeah. So what I was gonna say that he's humble bragging because you guys can't like see this. You're hearing this right now, but he's got a nice beard. He's got his eyebrows. I'm pretty sure he's got eyelashes. So like he has to be very good
I
at
haven't burned
this.
them off today, so they're there.
Yeah.
I've lit myself on fire by accident twice, and I walked away with my eyebrows, which are pretty thick, so I'm glad, because that would have been very poor. But I did lose a good portion of my eyelashes that were on the edges, and a lot of the hair on the bottom of my chin so like anybody that plays with fire that still has all of those things has to be a master at it. And anybody that knows anything about a master of something knows that even masters get bit occasionally. It's just knowing how to handle what happens when you get bit. That's what makes you a master. So
If you ever want to go to my TikTok and look at my videos, they can see it there.
yeah, we're gonna link that then, because I'm sure that is going to be a thing that is looked at. So
go look at my TikTok and then call me up and get in line. I'll light your pussy on fire.
there you go. Taking calls. So Mistress Mia, what has been one of your like favorite discoveries of something that like you didn't expect to be in, but like did it for you?
Ooh. There's not much that I really haven't done, and I'll always say there really isn't anything that I haven't done minus castration. But I never thought I was very maternal. I've always been like the cool auntie. But the older I get, the more I appreciate little men that love the adult baby diaper fetish, the ABDL. Mm-hmm. And I recently had this cute little guy that came in, all of 24, still a virgin. And, he brought in his big boy diapers and his little Toy Story t-shirt. And I thought, oh my God, this is fucking adorable. And, I tickled the shit out of him and fed him applesauce and spanked his bottom. And, it was adorable. I loved it. But it's not that it gets me all horned up, Yeah. When I see clients, I don't get all horned up unless they're really fucking hot.
Yeah. It's professional.
Exactly. But, I love tickle torture. I love to tie people down or chain them up, cuff them up, whatever, and tickle the shit out of them. I love doing that. And I love torture, feet torture. Bastionado is what we call it. I'm easygoing. I love to dress up cross dressers, and I love to spit on men, and I can't even narrow it down to one thing, honestly. I just love it all. I really do.
Well, and that's the thing. That's why I asked that question, because I figured it was going to be really hard for you to answer, because you were going to be like, but I like this, but I like that. And that's where, again, doing the research and like getting on guests who have a passion for what they do is so key, because when you ask them questions like that, they're going to have answers like you just had, where it's like, well, I like this. And you just went listed a litany of things that people have probably never heard of, or people are probably like, oh, what? And their Google search history is about to be really, 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 really bad. So, you're welcome for that, number one. But number two, I just think that it's, the saying of like, you're not going to yuck anybody's yum, but the being able to have an open mind and approach life in general with an open mind is, almost a dying art. And I hope to see it, starting to come back, because conversations like this are happening, and people like you two are out there allowing people to exist in the space that they genuinely need to exist in, to feel like they are who they want to be. And I think that, you guys having a podcast and, having guests on and doing interviews, and, you're giving life to something that people try and hide in the dark. And, I think that there's no amount of like congratulations and pats on the back to people who are doing that and doing it well, which you both do. So, again,
Thank you.
I'm glad about that, because more people need to hear those conversations and search out those podcasts, those books. Like, how many people read smut books but are afraid to hear somebody actually speak about, those things in a real way? Because now they're real, so that must be scary. No, it's the same thing. You were into it when, Heathcliff was doing it. Why aren't you into it when you and your husband, or you and your wife, or you and your partner can actually go experience this thing and find out that it isn't for you, but you did like this other thing? So
Yeah. When John and we host these parties, we get anywhere from 180 to 250 people, that come to these events, and they come from all over, New York, Chicago, Louisiana, just tri-state area around us, and we always encourage people, no matter your fetish, come experience, share with people what your kink is. And, some people, they're embarrassed that they love latex, or they're embarrassed that, they want to wear diapers, but, we always make it a point when we tell anyone that comes through that gate, do not judge others. You're not here for that. You're here to have fun and be who you are, and if you can't accept that, then, there's the door,
Right. And we're all here for the same reason. So once you get here and you see that everybody's here for the same reason, it allows you to be free to say, okay, this is who I am also.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I have to ask this question because, again, it's just like, wait, what? But Mistress Mia, you used to run a homeless shelter?
I used to run a homeless shelter, yeah. I did that for a number of years.
Yeah, that's awesome. I have a friend who does that kind of work here, so to me, I had to say something about it, because hopefully if they're listening, it's like, hey, because I work at a school, and one of the things that I've been trying to figure out is, I don't know what they do with all the food when it's left over, and I'm trying to see if I can start to get that food to take it to our local. We have a camp here, and half of it's sanctioned, half of it isn't. So some of it gets, helpful. Some of it gets like less helpful. So it's just whatever civilians can help out doing. So, anybody that does that kind of work, like, it hits a soft spot for me, because I'm all about the, the help your fellow human. So that's cool.
Well, when we throw our parties, I always tell people I donate to 2 places, and that's a local homeless shelter here. And they help so many people, mental health, veterans. They'll take anyone in. They're not discriminatory based on handicaps or other things. A lot of times, a lot of the local shelters like Salvation Army, if you have a walking aid, they can't accept you. So these people are just magnificent in what they do. So I donate to them, and I donate to different animal shelters, or, animal rescues. And like last year, and we had a November party. We always do it for John's birthday. We raised over $4,000 with Toys for Tots. We did that. All the Kinksters came. They donated toys, money, that kind of thing. So we always contribute, whether it's the local shelters for people or animals, one of the two.
Yeah, I like that. So, moving from a homeless shelter to your home space, you have a dungeon in your home. You've converted something. Yeah, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, like I said, when I started off years ago, I didn't have a dungeon, and we were actually, my family business was assisted living facilities. So we dealt with geriatrics and mental health for a number of years. And then ultimately, when I started with my homeless shelter, I was still working as a dominatrix. because I didn't open the shelter, to make money. I just wanted to pay the immediate bills. But I'm like, yeah, I got to get paid. So, yeah, I worked as a dominatrix. And then when I met my husband, he helped me expand, and we bought this house, and we turned our garage into a big dungeon space, and then it just kind of branches off into other bedrooms, and like the room behind us is full of tons of BDSM and sex shit. So it's run out of places to put shit.
Then she lets me go out in the yard and just build shit outside.
Joe, build sex furniture, and he builds sex furniture.
That's
like
awesome.
You do.
Yeah. It's my yard. I do what I want. Leave me alone, guys.
We have a couple posts out there to chain people up too. It's great.
There you go. So you guys are podcasters, like I said. I just looking through your stuff. I didn't listen to the interview because I wanted to get to know you as people on here before I listened to it and have this comment, and I wondered what you were going to say about it. But I saw that you got to have a conversation with Luba, and Luba is friggin' amazing. She is a blast. So what can you tell me, about your podcast and a little bit about that conversation?
You remember Luba from California? She's originally from the Ukraine.
I remember, but I can't remember the.
And well, John, he works too hard with his other job, and so when he's working 50 hours a week, I'm like, John, we got that interview. So he comes home, and I'm like, hey, we got to do this. So if you say, which hot blonde was that? We interviewed another hot blonde the week before.
As soon as you start talking about it, I'll remember.
Yeah. But Luba is a sensualist. She's a beautiful soul. She talked about being a sex coach and what it was like experiencing, for the first time, experiencing people and showing them what the level of intimacy is with or without an orgasm. She said, most people don't understand the concept of intimacy even without sex. And so she's just a beautiful soul. She's just so kind, and she has this beautiful energy. She's a wonderful person.
And what I really liked about her was she went her whole life, her whole marriage and everything, thinking that sex was one thing and it wasn't going to be enjoyable for her, and that she lost hope that sex was enjoyable. And then when she found out that it was, she just blossomed into this person who wants to make sure that everybody else knows it too.
Yeah. So what I did there is I asked you about a guest who I know a little bit about because I also had her on. But I just wanted to illustrate how much you care about the guests that you have on your show and how they leave an impact on you, and to help you, get a little bit more emphasis on why what you do is so important and why, you guys take what you do so seriously. I didn't ask if you worked 50 hours, but I found out that you worked 50 hours, but still put an effort in the podcast. And once she started talking about it, I could see you, John, light up about, oh yeah, I do remember that conversation. And you immediately thought the same thing that I thought, that she had this thought of sex is this thing. And as a male, for me, I will never understand how that feels, and what she went through, and to hear her story and to have somebody else feel the same way, where that's the thing that I genuinely appreciated about her, is that she's talking about that thing so openly, but also that you guys are, just as down to earth and human connection. And I'm talking to these people because their stories matter and they're humans and they matter. So your podcast also, has that vibe, comes across as, just like you guys are joking now and laughing and, talking about setting her pussy on fire, or, whatever that thing is, that
remember that line, Holmes.
Exactly. I had to circle it back, but yeah, like I said, I just want, people to take the chance, go check out your podcast as well, because when this airs, her episode will have aired, so it'll be a callback to somebody that has been on here, and they should go listen to that conversation, hear more about her story, and more about you guys.
Yeah.
I want to get to this or that. I'm going to try and make these questions a little bit quicker so that you have a little bit of time to plug your podcast as well. But these are sent in questions. I asked people, hey, I'm going to be talking to people that are in the sex space. What are some questions that you want to ask them? And these are some of them. So feel free to answer them as quickly as you want, or if you're like, ooh, that's a good one, just let me know. But the first one is, how did you establish boundaries that made you both feel safe? So in the dom space, how do you establish boundaries with that sub to make sure you both feel safe?
So we just had a demo about this about a week ago. We've created a book that goes through and says, these are the things I like, these are the things I don't like, these are my limits. And it opens up the conversation to have that with your partner, especially if it's a new partner. It's super important. Have those conversations, set the boundaries before you play so that nobody gets out of line while you do play. And let them know this is a hard limit. If you cross this line, we're done. And hold them to that. This is a soft limit. I'm not ready for this yet, but we'll talk about this later. These over here, these are great. Let's do some of these. And you're not going to have the same answers. But if you both agree on 4 or 5 or 6 things, you're free to do those 4 or 5 or 6 things, and then you can talk about the other things later. So communication.
I love that. So the next one, and you kind of just answered it, is what would it look like if one partner wants to stop? So whether that be in the moment or just in general, like they're like, hey, this thing just isn't for me. I don't want to do this anymore. How do you approach that situation?
Hey, they stop, it's done. We always say red, yellow, green, and green is, hey, they're good. There's really no reason to even say green, but if they say yellow, we immediately stop, assess the situation, question, what's going on in the scene. And then of course, red that's it. It's done.
Yeah. So this one is kind of more of your both of your personal opinions, and this is just like a generalization, but have you seen any negatives or downsides to what you do?
Well, yeah, we see people that are taken advantage of a lot. We see people that, a lot of the things that we do can cross the line into abuse very easily. If you're with someone that doesn't respect the boundaries that you've set, doesn't respect the communication that you've had. So yeah, we've seen that happen. Mistakes are made. I've made mistakes with people, and we have to go back and talk about those things. But I think the most detrimental is when you get with somebody who just doesn't respect who you are, what your boundaries are.
Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect. All right, and then now we got the this or that. So we're gonna end on a fun note. And again, I often assume that you've never heard the show before we got to this point. So this or that is just random questions that I came up with. I try and make them a little bit difficult, but a little bit fun. So it might be hard choices, it might be easy choices. We'll see. So you can both answer. Don't slap each other to see who goes first. So the first
we'll share that together and see if we match.
Easy setup or easy cleanup?
Easy cleanup. Yeah. I usually take a pretty elaborate setup, but when I'm done, I'm done. I don't want to sit there and clean it up forever.
And I'm simplistic. Yeah. I keep to the basics. I don't mind long cleanup.
I love that was the first one. That was perfect. All right. The next one is teaching a new dom or air quotes teaching the new sub.
Ugh. We get in this discussion. You're either a dom or you're not.
Yeah. I'm okay with teaching somebody technique.
Yeah.
But teaching somebody to be a dom is not really something you can do. So it's got to be teach air quotes pussy. We call them pussy fingers because like you put it over, you put it in the pussy. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
Pussy fingers. Teaching a new sub is fun because now you get to play and you get to explore with your new sub.
Yeah. All right. And the last one, which Mistress Mia, you've already kind of done, but this is on a grander scale. I'm talking like, unlimited budget. All right, so you get to design your dream house or your dream dungeon.
My dream house would have the dream dungeon in it. If not, it would be the entire house would be a dungeon.
I was about to say she was dungeon.
Yeah, dungeon. 1,000%.
We've already talked about buying a warehouse and building it into a big dungeon, making a club. So
I like it.
Yeah, if we had an unlimited budget, we would go build. There's an old haunted hospital we want.
Love it already.
Yeah. Yeah.
As you can see, the horror movie stuff behind me, definitely I feel that one. So you have a podcast. Tell us a little bit about it. What's it called? And where can people find it?
Well, we are on about 10 or 12 platforms right now, but it's Mistress Mia's Dungeon. And, red background, black cuffs. John and I, we do 3 episodes each week. And we try to personalize it. We try to reach out, such as yourself, reach out to your listeners, and we try to do things according to hoping that people get something from the bullshit that we spew.
I feel that.
We try to have a little bit of substance once in a while.
And then on Friday, I read a dirty story, and it's fun. It's fun. We keep it light, but the whole point of it is to break down the stigma, period, of BDSM, and allow BDSM into people's lives in a positive way, so it can be cathartic and helpful.
Yeah.
And we try to let people, we do interviews with people, with a variety of different people. Like you said, we're not really judging whether they're right or wrong or whether they're moral we're just giving a space to talk.
Yeah. And
allowing people to see, hey, I'm not alone. There are people out there like me. There are people that like the things that I like. I do have space in this world for who I am. So that's what we try to create.
Yeah, I love when John says that. You're not alone, and he means that.
I mean it, because I felt that I was for a long time. I felt like I didn't belong anywhere in any space. But
such a genuine person he is.
When you find your place. And that's what we want to do. We want to let people know there is a place for you. No matter what it is, there's a place for you.
Absolutely.
Yes. And we also preach that here. So I couldn't end it on a better note than that sentiment. So thank you both for being here.
Thank you.
Do you have social medias or anything that you want to drop to, or do you just want to link it in our show notes?
We'll link it in the notes, but you Google Mistress Mia's Dungeon, you get a heap load of shit.
Fair.
But we're on YouTube and TikTok and Fat Life, Master John, Mistress Mia Ray. So you'll find us.
Right.
We're there.
All right.
Master John, Lord Baylor, Johnny Hotcakes.
I love that.
His bitch.
All right. Well,
I'm not your bitch.
Well, again, thanks for being on. Thanks for listening. Again, we can't say it enough. There's a space for you. We're always here to have conversations, and I'm sure there's at least 3 people that like what you like. And I'm sure if you do it and ask real nicely, you'll probably find more. So with that, have a good one. The bell is about to ring. If you want to drop us a voice message or simply ask a question, you can do that by clicking the link in the show notes below. Be sure to leave us a 5-star review. It helps more people find us. Theme music by Kinsey. More music available on Spotify. Remember, every day is a class. Go learn something.